Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is Robin from Designhill, your host for the day. I hope you and your family are keeping well and safe. I would like to welcome you in this session where we are discussing LinkedIn marketing, success strategies, and ideas to grow your business. Today's event is brought to you by Designhill, world's leading creative marketplace that caters to the creative needs of businesses and individuals alike, who can source high quality designs from professional designers and buy unique products created by independent artists. So, moving ahead, let me introduce our speaker for today. We have with us Brett Williams. At 25 years old, Brett was able to learn from a group of successful business owners who opened his eyes to the possibilities of entrepreneurship, personal and professional development, and creating systems that foster success. Brett has since become obsessed with creating and implementing these success systems. What processes can be built into a business to produce consistent, predictable results? That question began a journey which led to Leading Linked, where Brett and his team help businesses combine amazing system with the power of LinkedIn to become industry leaders and grow their bottom line. Brett, can you please say a quick hi to the audience?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it today.
Great, great. So before we start the session, here is a quick update. You can take the screenshot of this event and post it on your Twitter and tag Design Hill and Leading Linked. One lucky winner will have a chance to win a PS gift card worth $50. Along with that, as a gesture of appreciation that you joined us for this event, we have some special offers for you. Keep an eye on our chat section to get your offer. Moving ahead, let's quickly look at what Design Hill is all about.
Looking to get your boss to remember your name? Head to the world's #1 creative marketplace, Designhill.
When my company promoted me to head up our latest real estate development project, I was excited, then anxious, then petrified. How was I going to hire the team, get the designs completed, and design beautiful presentation materials on our lean budget while impressing my bosses, some of whom are still learning my name?
Good job, Mitch.
My name's Lawrence. That's why I went to Design Hill and got the design help I needed that fit within my company's brand guidelines. The process was simple. Design Hill's design contest ensured I'd get a ton of results I'd love. Start by picking a number of designs that inspire you. This one's good, and that one. This one speaks to me. Then share some information about the project. Lastly, pick a package that fits your budget. Do you just want a logo, or do you want it all? Then, boom. I got more than 60 custom design options to choose from, as well as all the other graphic design assets I wanted. And it's all backed by Design Hill's 100% money-back guarantee. If I don't find a design I like, I get my money back. You can't lose. Now I have what I need to make a splash at my meetings, with everything from business cards, pamphlets, posters, and more. It's real.
Let the world know it's real and build your brand with Designhill.
All right, that was all about Design Hill, and now we are all set to start the session. Brett is going to be sharing a brief presentation about the concepts of LinkedIn marketing, post which we shall take up questions. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to post them in the questions tab. Over to you, Brett.
Awesome. Thank you again so much for having me. And as I'm going through some of the material that I'm going to go through today, one of the things that I often equate LinkedIn to is there tends to be a movement in the marketing industry as a whole to identify marketing almost as a light switch. And a lot of people think that you can come onto a platform like LinkedIn, and whether it's through paid advertising or content, you can kind of flip that switch on and you're going to begin having success and driving business. But the thing that I often encourage people to realize is that LinkedIn is not a light switch, it's a dimmer switch. And by a dimmer switch, what I mean is you're going to go from totally dark on LinkedIn, or maybe totally ineffective if you're currently active on LinkedIn, and slowly increase your results and your presence on LinkedIn. And so just by way of introduction, again, like he said, my name is Brett Williams. What a lot of people don't know about me is I actually have a background in telecommunications engineering. So before I went into marketing, I actually did engineering for some of the large telecommunications companies of the back ends of their network. So when he says that I have a passion for systems and automation, it's an understatement, because for me, systems are the lifeblood of business. And so by putting some systems into place when it comes to your LinkedIn, it can really make a huge difference in your ability to be effective. So what I'll do is I'm just going to go ahead and flip over here to my screen. And I'm going to, once I do that, I'm going to make sure that you can see everything okay. Let's see. Make sure I'm getting the right screen here. And we're going to allow that. Okay. Can you confirm for me that you can see my screen and see the slideshow here? Good. Can see it, not see it. I'm going to go ahead and assume that we can see it. Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing the nod there. Okay. So when it comes to success strategies on LinkedIn, the thing that I want to make sure you're clear on is that success is going to mean different things to different people. So you do have to define what success is to you. When it comes to LinkedIn, there are a lot of general areas that you can look at success. It may be looking at it from a brand awareness standpoint. It may also be looking at it from the standpoint of generating leads or new business. And you can also look at it from the perspective of building what your company culture is so that you can recruit the top talent to your company. So the key with LinkedIn is before you start, you need to start with the end in mind. Because if you don't know where you're going, you'll get there every time. So when it comes to LinkedIn, you want to realize that you are here to play the long game, in my opinion. If you're playing the long game on LinkedIn, then what you're doing is you're positioning yourself in a manner that is going to facilitate the growth of your company for the long term. There are many studies out there that talk about the different impacts of different fads that are happening, whether it's on LinkedIn or across different social media. But the reality is your business is going to be around in 6, 12, 18, 24 months from now. And the question is, are you preparing for that 6, 12, 18, and 24 months today, or are you going to be right where you're at right now? So I can go through a lot of different information here, and I'm not going to try to give you death by PowerPoint, but what I do want to talk about today around LinkedIn, because it is there are multiple facets that you can approach LinkedIn from. So the first one would be that we'll talk about today is content marketing. LinkedIn is inherently a content platform. And your marketing strategy, your content strategy on LinkedIn is going to be a huge determining factor in your success, regardless of how you or your team is using it. And then the second piece is how you or your team may use LinkedIn for sales or your outbound strategy, where it may fit in, what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. Because I'm sure you've seen recently, there's a lot of inappropriate use of LinkedIn as if you spend any time on the platform. And we'll talk about what that looks like and what are some best practices there. We'll cover advertising at a little bit of a higher level. I'll go into some of the details and talk about some different ways that you can use LinkedIn for advertising and what's appropriate again and what's not appropriate. And then, the part that'll be the after my own heart will be the systems and automation, where we talk about what systems to put in place, what processes to put in place, and how we can bring in automation into your overall LinkedIn experience and still play nice with the terms of services for LinkedIn. So if we go into content, the key with content, and I say this quite consistently, is either post value or don't bother. So if there's one thing that you remember from this entire lesson, is to either post value or don't bother. Because if you're not posting value on LinkedIn, if you're not giving yourself the opportunity to truly bring value and worth to your audience, then you're going to be completely irrelevant. People are going to forget about you, and you're never actually going to see very much movement. And that's regardless of how you use LinkedIn, whether you're a freelancer or you're a consultant or a coach or a small business owner. The value of your content is going to determine how efficient and how effective you are with LinkedIn. So the thing with a profile is, so many people on LinkedIn, they look at LinkedIn as what I call a resume database. Well, the challenge with a resume database is that it's just a large field where you can just tell people all about how great you are, all of the things that you've done in the past. But if you're using LinkedIn to build business, I'm going to tell you a secret here, and it may step on your toes a little bit. People don't care. People don't care. And you've heard the saying before, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Well, you want to take that approach with your profile. Is your profile geared toward the fact that it's a resume for you about getting new work? Now, if your goal on LinkedIn is to get new work or to get a new job, that you want your profile to be appropriate for that, and you want it to be more of a resume type profile. But that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about if you're in sales, if you're a consultant, a freelancer, or if you own your own business, your profile should be a resource for your ideal clients. This should be somewhere where your clients can come to get information that's going to give them or put you into a position of being a thought leader and give them value. So as you're building out your profile, some of it starts very basically. Number one, make sure you've got a very good, clean headshot. Now, it does not have to be professionally taken, but just make sure it's a good, clean headshot. Number two, make sure that you have things like a cover photo. And when you're doing your cover photo, you have the chance to either highlight your skills and expertise or highlight your company. You can choose which direction you want to go with that. But the key throughout the body of your profile is you want to look at it through the lens of, if my ideal client lands here, do they view me as an expert? And are they seeing it as something that they are going to come back to as a resource? So when you look at that profile, you want to ask yourself, is this my resume or is this a resource? Now, when it comes to the creation of content, there are a lot of different ways you can go about content creation, and you have to decide what type is going to be something that you can implement into your processes more consistently. You have video content, you have text content, you have audio content like podcasts and things like that. You can do infographics or any number of things when it comes to content creation. But for me, the key when it comes to content creation is to do what I call pillar content. So what we help our clients do, and what we advise some of our coaching clients to do, is to create what we call pillar content. And what that looks like is you're creating long form content that is value based. So it could be a longer video. It could be a longer article, like a blog post that's 1,500, 2,000 words. It could be a larger infographic, or even a larger slideshow like the one that I'm talking to, or I'm sharing with you today. But the key with with the creation of that pillar content is it then enables you to do what I call chunking it down, which basically means if you write, for instance, a 2,000 word article, there are going to be a lot of small shareable snippets within that article that you can then break down into smaller social posts. So when you're creating content for LinkedIn, there are so many different features that you can use, whether it's the LinkedIn Pulse articles, whether it is the LinkedIn Live, once you get approved for it, to create those longer form pieces of content and then chunk it down so that you can begin to really interact. Now, the other piece to the creation process for me is that the best way to get into value-based posting is to find out what kind of questions your ideal clients have, not just about your products or services, but about your area. So for instance, here at Leading Link, we're a marketing agency. And we're a B2B marketing agency. So the questions that I'm looking for is, what kind of questions are my ideal clients asking about their marketing processes? If you're a designer or a freelancer, you may be looking, okay, what kind of questions are they asking about design and about how they can approach design? And if you find those questions, one of the things that I often advise people to do is to make a list of the top 10 most frequently asked questions that your clients and prospects ask you throughout your sales process. And then make a second list of your top 10 the questions that they should be asking, but that they may not even know to ask. And then take those 20 pieces of those 20 questions and build 20 pieces of pillar content from those. And then you've got an enormous amount of content strategy there that you can chunk down. You can make infographics and videos, et cetera, from that. And then this fourth piece here is the one where I see so many content creators drop the ball, is they'll go through and they'll put all the work in of creating amazing content. And then when the rubber meets the road and they post it, they don't engage with the people that actually engage with their content. So this is almost like posting a poster in the middle of town for something that you're doing or some way that you can help people. And then when people show up to the event that you're posting a poster for, you're not even there. And you don't talk to anybody and you don't actually give them anything. So as you're posting all of this amazing value-based content that you're producing, make sure to engage with people. If somebody likes it, especially on LinkedIn, send them a message. Tell them you appreciate their like and offer the opportunity to engage with them. The thing with LinkedIn, and I think this is so often forgotten, is that it is a relationship goldmine, not a resume database. I'm going to say that again. LinkedIn is a relationship goldmine, not a resume database. And so if you look at LinkedIn through the perspective of, I am going to use this to build relationships, then every time somebody engages with a piece of your content, you have an opportunity and an open door to engage them in a warm manner because it's no longer cold. From there, the last piece, and if people are consistent on making sure their profile is up to date and is a resource, they're creating consistent content that brings value and they're engaging, the consistency piece is the last piece that I often see people drop the ball on when they are creating their content strategy. Because without consistency, nothing else matters. If you are building your content in a consistent fashion. Now this is a statistic that was actually pre-COVID, but the LinkedIn platform has grown exponentially in the past 6 months, given the current situation. But before COVID, if you posted one time per week from your personal profile or your company page, then you were going to be in the top 3% of content creators across LinkedIn. Now, I'm sure that number has changed slightly in the past 6 months since they've added over 100 million users. But if you're posting on a consistent basis, you're playing to the LinkedIn algorithm, you're putting yourself further up in people's newsfeed, and therefore you're basically getting free advertising. So that's a key that I would definitely say you want to make sure that you're baking into your overall content strategy. Now, the second piece here is the sales and outbound piece. Now, I've got a mentor. His name is Jeffrey Gitomer. He's known as the king of sales. He wrote the Little Red Book of Selling, the Sales Bible, and about 15 other books around sales. And he is very well known for saying, people don't like to be sold, but they love to buy. And so when it comes to LinkedIn, especially, the key is to create an environment where your clients want to buy. This is not the best platform for cold outreach. This is not a platform where you want to be pitching your services via a LinkedIn message, whether that's in mail or they're your connection or on the connection request. So when it comes to your sales and outbound strategy, what I encourage you to do is look at your sales and outbound strategy as a single piece of your overall outbound strategy. So that outbound strategy may be cold email, cold calling. It may be some sort of physical mailing products, those types of things. But make sure that LinkedIn is just a piece of it, that it is not the only piece. Because the key when it comes to the sales and outbound side is, again, and I'll say this multiple times, is LinkedIn is a relationship goldmine, not a resume database. Zig Ziglar, who is someone who I follow very closely, he's what I refer to as the late great Zig Ziglar, said, you can have everything in life you've ever wanted if you just help enough other people get what they want. And when it comes to your sales and outbound approach on LinkedIn, that's the attitude that I encourage you to take, is I'm looking to help and find people and help them get what they want. And by default, I'm going to get what I want. Now, from a tactical standpoint, because that's really, you don't want to sit here and listen to me just sit and philosophize about LinkedIn and about the just the mindset piece. So from a tactical standpoint, LinkedIn, especially if you're using the premium sales navigator features, is a absolute, again, I'm going to use the word gold mine when it comes to researching your prospects, identifying your prospects, and finding out where they may be in the buying cycle. And one of the other pieces that you can use LinkedIn for is to move from a cold conversation to a what I would call a lukewarm conversation. So when you're moving from a cold conversation to a lukewarm conversation, from my perspective, the only difference is they may have seen your name a few times. Maybe they've seen your company a few times. So when you're leveraging LinkedIn, if someone is active on LinkedIn, if your prospects are active on LinkedIn, you can use Sales Navigator to determine, number one, where are they working? What are they doing for that company? What are their responsibilities? But then also their level of activity on LinkedIn. And if you use Sales Navigator in that way, then you can begin to look at what type of content are they interacting with. Are they posting their own content, or are they just sharing their company's content? And as you are seeing that, then you can begin to get into their notifications by doing things as simple as viewing their profile. They're going to get an email that gives them an opportunity to see who has viewed their profile. And if you make sure your settings show that they can see you viewed their profile, then they're going to see your name and your face in an email because you viewed their profile. The second piece here is going to be using LinkedIn to interact with their content. So whether it's liking, the biggest difference maker when you're talking about interacting and building that relationship is commenting something of value on the content that they are posting on and that they are interacting with. If you see that they've commented on something, replying to their content, something as simple as that, or replying to their comment rather, it's a huge difference maker, and you're putting yourself in front of them so that when you are on the phone with them, or you may send them an email, they're really going to interact with you at a deeper level. The third piece of this is going to be the patient side. Now, realizing, like I said, LinkedIn is not a light switch, it's a dimmer switch. So you're building your overall strategy. Now, if you're just using LinkedIn as an extra touch point in your overall outbound prospecting method, doing things like sending a connection request that does not include a pitch, doing things like viewing their profile and interacting on their content and their comments is a fantastic way to use it to crack that outbound strategy. But if your primary means of outbound outreach is on LinkedIn, I would highly encourage you to realize that the patience aspect is going to be the biggest differentiation. If you're willing to be patient and just have and build that relationship, you're going to make the biggest difference. And the way that I equate this is, if you're out, in a time that we can actually go out to a networking event or a bar or a club, if you are out and you see someone from a dating perspective, and this is the best analogy I've ever heard when it comes to this, if you see somebody that you want to interact with and potentially date, you don't walk straight up to them and propose. It's going to be weird. They're not ready for that. You've not put the work in to build that relationship yet. But if you walk up to them and begin to say, "Hi, my name's Brett, what's yours?" and begin to build that relationship step by step by step, then you put yourself in a better position. You're not seeming needy or greedy, but you're actually there to give value. And then the last piece here is make sure that your sales and outbound strategy is positioning you as a resource to them. One of the best methods that I have ever seen when it comes to outreach on LinkedIn is to just give value. If you're truly an expert in your industry, then you should know what other publications, what blogs, what resources there are out there, and you should be researching them. And if you see an article or a blog or an infographic or a video that would bring value to that chief marketing officer or that chief or that VP of marketing or director of design, whoever it is, take the link, go into your LinkedIn messages because you've already connected with them and say, hey, I saw this article. I thought it may be of some help to you and your team. Hope you're doing well. Talk soon. And then all you're doing, you're not pitching, but you're putting yourself as a resource. And I promise you, if they're not in the buying cycle, then they will be in the buying cycle. And what you're doing here is you're building your nurture base. You're realizing that you're going to need to play the long game. And by playing the long game, you're realizing that at any given point, different studies have shown that about 3% of your total market is actually in the market to buy right now. And so if only 3% of the market is in the market to buy right now, the question is, what are you doing to capture the 3% that's going to be in the market 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 12 months from now, so on and so forth? You get the point. So position yourself as a resource. Now, from here, I think we're going to take just a quick break, and we're going to talk about some of the amazing things that Designhill has going on.
All right. I hope you guys are enjoying the session. Before we move forward, I would like to give a quick shout out to Designhill, world's leading creative marketplace, for organizing this event. Let's take a quick short break and keep this interesting conversation going.
I've always been creative and always been an artist. As a young girl, I used to paint rocks and I used to sell them for a quarter on the street. And I just fell in love with it. It just grew into a passion of mine. I started looking on the web and I came across Designhill, and they had a design contest to design a logo, and I entered it and I won. And I was like, oh, this is really great. I can pick and choose what type of logos or design projects I want to work on. And it allows me to be creative, keep my hands, with my tools and working. So it's kind of nice. It's really easy to use. You can scroll through the projects and there's sections that you could go by. It's really easy. There's a few clients who have come back to use the one-on-one projects. There's one client in particular, she owns a vintage shop, and I designed her logo, and she came back. She needed a design for a flyer, and she really liked the illustrations that I did for her, so she came back a couple of times with projects. I would recommend it, especially if you're a designer that's starting out and you want to learn from other designers, seasoned designers. It's a place to keep in the game and keep using your tools. It makes me feel great, and it kind of confirms that I should be doing this. And I love to see logos that I've designed out and proud of that. And I think that the clients are so happy that their logo represents what they do and makes them look good. It's a collaboration. It's good for me, and it's definitely good for them.
All right. We are back again. Let's continue with the session.
Awesome. Let me go back and I'll reshare my screen here. Okay, so we stopped off talking about sales and outbound, and I want to talk to you about a really funny conversation that I was a part of. So a good friend of mine does a lot of cold calling for several different tech companies that are SaaS companies in the Silicon Valley here in the United States, which is kind of like a tech hub. And it was interesting because I was with him whenever he was making some of these cold calls, and it was a Friday before a holiday weekend, and he was cold calling chief revenue officer, so he thought. So he actually ended up with a CEO of a pretty good sized company, who I won't divulge, on the phone. And when the guy answered, he introduced himself and he said, do you have just a minute to talk? And the CEO said, well, I'm about to get on my boat. And so this friend of mine immediately says, that's amazing. I'm not quite to the point where I own my own boat that I go out on the weekends. So how did you do that? And he turned what should have been, for most people, about a 30-second cold call that ended up with someone hanging up into about a 15-minute conversation of this CEO sharing wisdom and insight into his experience. Now, here's the reason I share that, is because at the end of that call, he ended up not only getting a referral within that organization from the CEO, but actually building his pipeline to a significant level. It ended up being about a 6 or 7 figure potential deal. And here's the reason that matters, is because when you're presented with an opportunity, whether the environment is a cold call or LinkedIn, you have the opportunity to begin a conversation and open a conversation. And how you choose to open that conversation and continue it is going to be the biggest difference maker in whether or not you are going to have a successful conversation. And so one of the ways that a lot of people choose to open those conversations, even on LinkedIn, is with advertising. Now, with LinkedIn advertising, it's a very unique platform. And it's unique because all of the data, or a lot of the data rather, is user provided. And so here's what that means is, number one, it means it's more accurate. And number two, it means that the users of the platform are providing the specific and invaluable targeting information so that you can make sure that if you're advertising to them, you are getting the right audience for your message. So one of the first things that many people do if they change jobs or they get a promotion is they'll go to LinkedIn and they'll update their LinkedIn profile so that it now reflects that new vice president position that they have, that new director position, or that they're with this new company. And the true power of that when it comes to advertising is that there's very little guessing. You can hone in your audience to a very tight audience of what your ideal client is and who your message is for. And because you're able to do that, what it allows you to do is make that advertisement very specific and pointed, and therefore it's just going to appeal. And I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but I know it's happened to me a lot, where you're scrolling along on, pick your social media, and you see that ad that literally looks like it was written for you. Sometimes it may even say, if you're a VP of marketing, it may say at the top, VPs, vice presidents of marketing. And you're like, oh, that's for me. And so it entices you to kind of be pulled in. So that's one of the biggest advantages when it comes to advertising on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn offers a lot of different types of ads, and which specific type of ad is going to be specific to your situation and what it is you're working to accomplish. So there are things like sponsored content, which is very similar to what you may see on platforms like Facebook, where it looks like a standard post. There may be an image, there may be a video, there's typically some text, but that's specifically sponsored and boosted in front of an audience of your choice. There are messaging ads, there are video ads, lead generation ads. There are now conversation ads, which is a type of ad that LinkedIn just recently launched. And each of these ads has their own flavor, if you will, and has their own benefits and their own pros and cons, we'll say that. But what I typically recommend if someone's really wanting to get started on LinkedIn with advertising is that you start with sponsored content, because it's the simplest, it's the one you're going to be the most used to, and it's the easiest to kind of control and make sure that you're getting in front of the right audience. Now, the next piece of this is what to advertise. And one of the things that you may see is on other social platforms, you may see what I call transactional advertising. And this is where, and I think we've all been a victim of it before, where you see that ad to purchase a specific product, you click the ad, you pay $30 for whatever product it is, and then you end up getting the 3 upsells, and by the time it's over with, you spend $130 rather than just $30. But the key is that it was what I call a transactional advertising. LinkedIn is not the place for that. So when you're talking about what to advertise, you want to keep it what I call very top of funnel. So that means very low friction. And the reason for this is you're putting it in front of what may be the right audience, but what you don't know is the intent of that audience, at least at that time. You don't know where they're at in the buyer's journey, or if they're even in the buyer's journey right now. You don't know what their current situation is. You don't know if they're in contracts with other vendors. So you want to keep it very top of funnel. meaning it needs to be, I would recommend free things such as white papers, ebooks, guides, downloads where you can capture their information and bring them into your environment and begin to nurture that relationship, but that it's very top of funnel, so it's very low friction. Obviously, you go back and you go all the way back to the what I said originally, which is either post value or don't bother. When it comes to your ads, either be producing and giving something of extreme value, what I would call an irresistible offer, or don't bother. Because if whatever you're offering does not have extreme value to your audience, you're just wasting your time. So that's really what you want to advertise on LinkedIn, is you want to keep it very top of funnel. If you're looking to book strategy sessions, have a conversation, demo our software, anything like that, you're probably not going to see nearly the conversion rate. You can try it, but you're probably not going to see the conversion rate. Now, when it makes sense to advertise, this is where you want to get into a lot of the nitty-gritty, if you will. First and foremost, when it makes sense to advertise, there are typically 3 use cases for advertising. The first one is business-to-business contracts and relationships. So if you are selling to businesses and they are contracts that are at least $15,000 in lifetime value, then that can make sense to advertise. Again, it's still top of funnel. So if you're looking at, hey, I've got 1 month of advertising budget, you may be waiting 6 months to see the return on that advertising budget. There's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure you're aware of what you're actually doing and what your sales cycles are. The second piece is going to be higher education. So for instance, if you are trying to advertise for graduate programs or doctoral programs to people with bachelor's degrees, LinkedIn is a great place to do that. And there's typically the return on investment available for a type of for an advertisement like that. And then the third place that it may make sense is for what I call white collar recruiting. So if you're looking to fill a VP spot or an executive spot, or if you're a recruiter, then you can typically get that return on investment that's enough to justify the ad spend, because LinkedIn is not a place that it is inexpensive to advertise. To give you an idea, on Facebook, you may be looking somewhere between $1, maybe $3 per click or less, depending on what you're advertising. Whereas on LinkedIn, it may be 6 to 12 or more, depending on who your target audience is. So the key when it comes to LinkedIn is, as I've got here at the bottom, is to stop thinking in receipts and again, start thinking in relationships. Because this is what you're doing, is you're opening the door to a potential relationship. You're giving yourself the opportunity to get in front of this person and begin that process of nurturing. But this is going to be a colder audience. And when I say colder, it's because they did not proactively seek out your products or services normally. So you're putting an ad in front of that ideal client that gives you a chance to bring them into your environment and interact with them and build your value with them over time. But very rarely is it going to be somebody who clicks on your ad and within a week is closing a 5, 6, 7-figure deal. So just keep that in mind whenever you're looking at the ads and the advertising. From here, this is where we get into my bread and butter and my favorite pieces. This is where we're going to get into the systems. Now, here at the bottom, like I said, systems produce sustainability. What that really means is that if you have systems in place that allow you and position you to consistently produce content, consistently reach out using specific outbound processes and strategies, if you have systems in place for your advertising and what happens on the back end and your follow-up, then you can position yourself above and beyond any of your other competition. The average cold audience takes anywhere between 9 and 17 touches, according to the most recent studies that I've read, to convert to a potential client. So if you're looking at between 9 and 17 touches, the question is, what kind of systems do you have in place to make sure that you're following up with those people? Because if you don't have systems in place, I promise you that 99% of the time, you're not going to follow up 9 to 17 times. The second piece of this is making sure that your processes are widely communicated across your organization. So if you're leading a company, you want to make sure that your processes are consistently being executed across your organization. Now, places, again, that you can have processes in place, your content development. How often are you developing content? Are you developing it all in one big block, which is sometimes something that some people do? They'll sit and they'll produce an entire quarter or an entire 6 months of content in a week, because they'll do several long form videos or long form articles, and then they'll slowly drip those out over the course of 3, 6, 12 months. Are you producing them just daily? Some people, one of the things that I like to do is every day that I'll release a video from my and my company's LinkedIn. Those videos I produce every day just because I enjoy doing it every day. And it's a part of a process that I can put into my routine that allows me to give value to my audience. So making sure that you've got those processes. And here's the biggest differentiator, is not just that you have the processes in your head, but that you have them documented. If you have them documented, a written process increases the likelihood of the execution and the effectiveness of that process by somewhere around 75%. So making sure that you have those processes there, that you have them documented, and that you're positioning yourself to win by doing that. Now, here's the automation piece, okay? Now, the thing with automation, and this is my disclaimer, is that LinkedIn automation, automation of any type outside of just content posting, is expressly a violation of LinkedIn's terms of service. So if you're automating your messaging, if you're automating your connection requests, or if you're automating your engagement in any way, officially LinkedIn says that is against their terms of service. Now, there is a lot of this that takes place on the LinkedIn platform, and how you choose to use those are up to you. I can tell you, if you're automating things like pitches in messages, you are significantly more likely to get booted from the platform, because people are going to report that as spam. I know some people who just automate opening up of conversations. So it could be something to the effect of automating messaging around, hey, I saw that we're both in the marketing industry. I'd love to catch a 15-minute slot where we can chat and see if we can brainstorm on ideas of how to deal with the current environment. Something like that, that's very low friction and opens up the opportunity for conversation. That can be the biggest differentiation in whether or not you get, quote, busted for automation or not. Are you automating your follow-up? Again, we've already talked about that, whether that's email follow-up, how are you following up on LinkedIn, those types of things, and then tools. And I want to make sure I'm being respectful of time here, so we're going to go ahead and click right on to tools. This is a list. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just a list of different tools that you can use for your overall strategies that I've talked about. For content development, phrase.io is an amazing place to find what kind of questions your ideal clients are asking across the web. SEMrush, Ahrefs, trylately.io. I'm going to talk about this tool very briefly here because this tool is powerful. This tool integrates AI and machine learning to chunk down the long form content that you're producing. So if you take my advice and you produce longer form content, you feed it into the trylately.io environment. And I'm not saying this because I get any kickback from Trylately, but you feed this into their environment, and it actually uses AI and machine learning to create shorter form social posts from your content. Above and beyond that, it bakes in things like subtitles, which if you're doing videos, most videos are watched on silent, so you need subtitles or you're wasting your time. It allows you to post directly from Trylately, and it monitors the engagement to see what keywords, what phrases, what kind of content is getting the most engagement on the platform, so that then when it's building content out in the future, it's taking that into consideration. It's a powerful, powerful, powerful tool that I highly encourage. It is not inexpensive, but it is powerful. You can see these. I'm not going to read these all to you. For marketing automation, I tend to recommend either Pardot or HubSpot. That's just my personal preference. You've got email marketing opportunities in all of those. Video recording, so thehippovideo.com. Thehippovideo.com is an amazing resource where you can quickly record short videos to send to prospects, to post on your social media. Amazing company there. TryAnyVoo.com. This background behind me is actually an AnyVoo background. So TryAnyVoo.com. It's actually a printed background, so you don't have to worry about the weirdness of the virtual background, fading in and out and things like that. If you go to TryAnyVoo.com, amazing company there. And then when it comes to education, because again, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But if you don't know anything, then you're not going to be able to add value. So trydigitalmarketer.com. Digital Marketer is an amazing resource, and they bring in some of the most amazing speakers for live webinars. They offer certifications in digital marketing. And if you go to trydigitalmarketer.com, you can actually register for their newsletter and their insider club totally for free. They do have a lot of subscriptions and a lot of things that you can purchase, but if you go to trydigitalmarketer.com, then you can actually register for their newsletter for free, and they give amazing value in their newsletter. So with that, this is my information. You can feel free to reach out to me through any of these resources. One of the things that I am offering for anybody who is on the Designhill webinar today, if you go to linkedquiz.com, you can take a brief assessment that we put together so that you can find out what your company's LinkedIn marketing rating is. There's a free training that actually follows that about building the foundation of that marketing system. And then we do go live twice a week, typically on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, as well as it'll soon be on podcasting platforms for our leadership, sales, and marketing show called Leading to Sales. I bring on guests to discuss the current situation of leadership, sales, and marketing. So again, that free assessment, linkedquiz.com, that is for your company's LinkedIn marketing rating. And I would love to hear from you on LinkedIn or across the web. So with that, I will turn it over for Q&A.
All right. So that was a great presentation, Brett, and you shared some valuable insights to our audience. So let's quickly take up some questions. So we don't have any questions from our live audience, but we do have some questions from our registered participants who registered for the event, but unfortunately they were not able to attend the event. So we'll be sending the recording to them. So let's take some questions from them. So one of our participant has asked, what are some tools necessary to create a funnel system? So as you mentioned about tools, so is there any specific tool, Brett, that you can use for funnel system?
Yeah, so I mean, ClickFunnels is an amazing tool when it comes to funnel system. When you're talking about the actual web design, web development piece of that, HubSpot allows you to build in some automation as well. Now, HubSpot and Marketo tend to be a little bit more premium tools that tend to be more suited for corporations and larger companies. But things like ClickFunnels, Go High Level is also an amazing tool. And then we're in the process, and this is not an endorsement. I want to make sure that's clear because we just started checking out this tool, but there's an amazing tool that's free right now online called Groove Pages or Groove Funnel. So you may want to check that out. Again, we just started checking this out, so that's not an endorsement of them, but we have used ClickFunnels and Go High Level, very effective tools when it comes to funnel building and even building in a piece of marketing automation.
All right. So talking about tools only, one of our audience, they have asked like if there is any tool that can be used for B2B marketing.
Yeah, so I think that when it comes to B2B marketing, it's, HubSpot, Marketo, or Pardot are probably the most commonly used tools when it comes to B2B marketing. Now, if you're doing it from an individual, you want to use probably some of those other tools I mentioned, the ClickFunnels and things like that. I mean, B2B marketing is a very broad term, so there are a lot of tools out there, yes. But what I tend to recommend is automate a lot of the pieces, but make sure that you have processes within that automation that include the human touch, because you're never going to get more value than you will out of a human touch. And if you get that human touch, it can make all the difference in the world.
Okay, let's take another question. What are the main metrics to know that your B2B LinkedIn campaign is successful or has failed?
So a lot of the metrics we looked at, and it depends on what campaign you're talking about. And so if you're talking about an advertising campaign, that's a different set of metrics versus a content marketing campaign. And I can't stress this enough. LinkedIn is a dimmer switch, not a light switch. So you have to take into consideration things like how long is your sales cycle? What kind of audience is it that you're attracting? Are you attracting the right audience? Those types of pieces are important. But the pieces that we look at, if you're talking about content marketing, is what is our engagement level? Are we seeing engagement? Are we seeing likes? Are we seeing comments? What's the reach? What's the reach? Is people call reach a vanity metric? Well, no, it's not the vanity metric. It's the very first metric that you have to master. Because if you can't master reach, then you're not going to master anything else, because not enough people are seeing your content. When it comes to advertising, obviously the metrics that you're going to look at is cost per click, how many clicks, what's your conversion rate, how many of those are converting into leads, and then again, having a realistic view of that overall sales process. Okay, once they convert to a lead, is it 6 months before they become a client? Is it 12 months? Because those are the only times that you can measure specific ROI. Now, the last piece of that is when it comes to your content marketing campaigns, I highly encourage you to make those top of funnel, which means you're giving an opportunity and a standard follow the bouncing ball path to becoming a lead. One of the best ways I've ever heard this put, and I need to find out who it was that said this because I quote it all the time, is if you are not providing a call to action of some sort to your audience within your content as well as your advertising, it's not just bad marketing. It's a bad user experience. And if you're providing a bad user experience because somebody doesn't know how to begin to interact with your company in a potential client relationship, then they're going to do research and they're going to probably end up with one of your competitors.
Okay. So we have a question from Alexandra in our questions tab. She's asking how important is to use images for posts.
Very good question. Thank you for asking that. That's so one of the best ways when it comes to one of the best things to think about when it comes to using images for post is one of the biggest factors of the LinkedIn algorithm is something called dwell time. And that is how much time someone spends looking at your post, how much time your post spends on their screen. So using images is good. And there's two reasons you would want to use images. The first one is to stop the scroll. That if you're doing nothing else, the image should stop the scroll. The second one is if you're providing something like an infographic, then it should provide enough information that makes someone want to spend some time on your post. And by having those two pieces, stopping the scroll and having them spend time on your post, you're going to increase the reach of your overall of your post. And by increasing the reach, you increase the opportunity for engagement.
Okay. Let's take another question. Jade has asked, is LinkedIn best for startup graphic design company to gain clients?
So if you're a startup graphic design company, I guess you have to determine, number one, who it is that you're niching to. My opinion is if you're a startup, if you're not niching, I think I've heard multiple times, the riches are in the niches. Well, the key is if you're niching to business clients, if you're niching to people who have presence on LinkedIn, then yes. Now, if your goal is to market to e-commerce companies, if your goal is to market to smaller businesses like that are more business to consumer, say dentists, doctors, things like that, LinkedIn is probably not the best place to do that. But if you're wanting to market to IT firms, to accounting firms, if you're wanting to get into, like I said, those larger B2B companies, then yes, LinkedIn is where you want to live. Now, the other piece to this is LinkedIn plays well with SEO. So if you have a LinkedIn company page that is built out properly, then you can appear in more search results on Google. And so LinkedIn can position you to do that. So even if you're appearing or working to appeal to those business to consumer companies, having a LinkedIn presence still has a lot of value. It just may not be the best place for you to do your prospecting.
Okay. Let's take last question for today. Uh, so one of our live audience has asked, as you mentioned, having scripts for your videos because most people don't listen to it with the sound on. What tool or vendor do you recommend using to accomplish this?
Absolutely. Fantastic question. And thank you for reminding me to bring that up. So one of the tools, so there are a lot of different tools that you can use. One of them is rev.com, I believe it is. And rev.com, they use live transcriptionist. They charge, I believe it's $1 a minute or somewhere around there. Very powerful tool, very great website and tool to get those subtitles. One of the ones that we use is a company called ClipScribe, ClipScribe. ClipScribe is a more automated tool. It requires more hands-on. So like we really have to make sure that we go back through the subtitles that it puts in, but it gives us a little bit more ability with our videos. If you check out our company page or my personal profile, you'll see that the videos that I do, they have a banner on top that has a title. They have the subtitles burned into the bottom. That's all done through ClipScribe. So those are the two tools that we use the most, is rev.com and ClipScribe.
Great. Okay. Okay. So, all right, guys, this brings us to the end of this wonderful session. This was indeed a value-packed session. Although there is a lot more that we could have discussed, unfortunately, we are limited by time here. I hope you guys loved this session. Once again, I would like to thank Brett for taking out time to be part of this event.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
Awesome. So, all right, guys, this is not where it ends. We have a lot more events lined up for you in the coming days. The next event is a workshop on how to profitably grow a business with Google Ads. So, if you guys are interested and haven't registered yet, I am putting the link of our event section in the chat section where you can find all of our upcoming events and register there. To stay updated with the events like these, you can follow us on our LinkedIn page. You can also give suggestions on the topic you would like us to cover and speakers you want us to host. I'm dropping the link of our LinkedIn page in our chat section here. And to watch this session and other such wonderful events, subscribe to our event section on designhill.com/events or visit our official YouTube channel Designhill. You can find that link again in the chat section here. For all the business owners who are listening to this and wish to source high quality graphic designs and build a brand today, visit designhill.com. And also, we have recently launched a DIY creative tool called Designhill Studio. Be it a designer or a non-designer, everyone can create beautiful designs such as business collaterals, presentation, social media posts, banners, and much more within a few minutes and all by themselves. To check this out, you can visit designhill.com/studio. You can find the link of this again in the chat section. On that note, I would like to say bye to everyone who joined us here today. Take care, guys. Stay safe. And thank you so much. And thank you so much, Brett, again, for the valuable insights and for the great presentation. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.